How's the team responded, Ben, after, what, a 3-4 day break?
No,
Get back in the gym yesterday, but there was a break there for Christmas.
yeah, we that mandatory break that we had, so we got back 26. They've been good. We've had good competitive practices, get their legs back. I know they're eager to play, so that's a good thing, and I think they'll be fired up for tomorrow.
What have you learned just like in your first 2 years about those long breaks and how to make sure the guys respond well in that?
Yeah, I know. I think it's a little bit of a challenge just because you want to give them some time off to rest, but it only takes 2 days to kind of start losing your conditioning. So the balance of getting them back, and being able to save their legs for games and be competitive, but at the same time, get their win and get their legs and get their conditioning back right. It's kind of that balancing act. But I do think, days off are good and guys need the rest. So we'll find ways and have found ways, to make sure their conditioning is right. And then I think adrenaline hopefully kicks in. But that first game, you're always a little bit worried just about the timing aspect too. But I think our guys will be ready to roll.
What's the break been like for Dawson? And I know obviously he was dressed for the last game.
Yeah, it's been really good. Really good. He'll be available tomorrow. I think that's a guy that definitely you can steal him for a game and you don't have to play him in the last game. Makes a huge difference just that one day. And so for him to have really 5 days off of it and then come back looks really good. Conditioning looks really good. So he'll be ready to roll for sure tomorrow.
How important is it to have him back for this one game before things really ramp up starting next week?
Yeah, it's good. You don't want to put him in a tough spot where his first game's back off, so now on the road in the Big Ten, So to get him a game under his belt just to get the timing back and the rhythm and, get his body back moving defensively, I think was key. So that was kind of always the goal. If we could go before, it just had to really make sense. But the goal is always, all right, if we can get him back, a game before we really start league play, that's kind of ideal situation because you got the rest, but then you also got the game under your belt.
And what have you seen from Cam now that he's been in the starting lineup?
I think, you're seeing, more and more confidence every day, every game. You're seeing a guy that I think is proving can get us some buckets. You're seeing a guy that defensively I think has taken a really big step. And that to me, when he's gotten extended minutes, because of Braden being out, I think that's the biggest thing that stood out is he's now kind of been forced to defend, especially at a high level, and he's proven to rise to that challenge. And I think the physicality piece he's getting more comfortable with, more confident with, and just in our defensive system, just the more reps you get as a young guy, the better. And so I think that offensively, I know what he is, and he's a good player, but I think that the defensive part is what's really stood out to me. And I think last game he got 7 rebounds, or 6 or 7 rebounds. Like he wasn't doing that before, and now again that just comes with being aggressive, but it comes with a mentality, of just playing hard.
You talked about Pharrell after that last game and some of the development. What are some of the biggest areas you've seen him grow since he's been, here in the program?
I think everything. The reason I made the point, last press conference about him not being even a Mr. Basketball finalist, right? You got to take all that into account. He played on a high school team, did a really good job, developed and grew, took a step. AAU, he played on a really good AAU team. They just weren't on the shoe circuit, so he wasn't in some of the major high-profile tournaments. Wasn't a Mr. Basketball finalist. So now you're coming to this level and a lot's thrown on your plate, and he still, early on was adjusting to that, but he's taken such great strides in embracing all that, the mental part of it. And I think you're seeing his growth grow with just confidence. I think defensively he's a little bit like Cam, where now, he's so smart. Sometimes he can overthink or think too much. And now, a year and a half in the system, he's able to use his athleticism and speed to just go play because he knows the system. And for us, that's a huge separator because now you got a big body that can really move, that can mobile, that can protect the rim, that can defend a pick and roll. That part is huge. So the defensive piece, I think he's really made a big stride, and he's taken pride in it. And Even just his overall demeanor, he's more vocal, he's more comfortable in the locker room. He's not a freshman anymore. Like all that little stuff as matters with a guy like him. He's just, again, he's such a good kid. He's so nice that now you want him to have more alpha to him, which I think he's starting to develop.
On that speed and athleticism, how does it compare now to, say, senior year of Park?
Oh,
I mean, it's just body transformation.
yeah, I mean, light year. Like if we do before and after pictures. I mean, just light years in terms of, the motor being at a 10 more times than not, right? Like he's always been athletic, and I think now it's like, can you use it more? Don't take rest, don't get tired, don't fatigue. He was one of the guys that when we did the Winners Week at the end, realized he has more in his tank. He just got to push himself. And so now it's like, can you get more of that out of you? Where now, when you're playing in those stretches, can you really blow it up, right? Don't save it, because you're a good enough athlete and you're good enough shape where your motor can be on 10 the entire 4-minute stretch or whatever it is. But some of that is just the maturity of understanding what it means to play hard.
How much does him playing without Dawson help him to almost really play with him?
A lot. And, we had those two guys playing together in practice yesterday. And I think it's good for him because, I don't want him to have to feel like he's got to shoulder the load all the time, one day he needs to be a Batman, and I think he will, but I think he's a pretty good Robin, and it really helps him, and it helps where now he can put his focus in different spots, but it just, the light doesn't shine as bright on him sometimes when he's out there with Dawson, which is a good thing. And again, he's very capable of being a number one or a playthrough type of big, but you can also do that without having that spotlight on you, which to me is like best case scenario. And so for him to be able to get extended minutes and reps when Dawson's out, I think is only going to help him and us now that Dawson's back.
We saw Caden kind of come into the rotation a little bit. What has he done to kind of push for more playing time?
Yeah, unbelievable worker, man. He just works, and I tell these guys all the time, like, they have to give me confidence to play him, especially when you're a younger guy. But for all of our guys, like, you got to give a coach confidence to play you. Like, give them reasons. It can't just be because you've been here or because you show up to practice. Like, you got to give us reasons to play you. And I want to steal minutes for him just because he does. He's a worker. He lives in the gym. He does the right things. He's a big body. I mean, he's a 6'8", 215, plays downhill. So for his physicality, we need that, and I want that, especially on the perimeter. And so to be able to steal those young guys' minutes, to try to steal Chris, 3 or 4 minutes at the end of a game like I did, is huge, because you never know when you're going to need them either. You never know. But you also want to keep encouraging those guys to keep doing what they're doing. You got to have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, especially for young guys, and that's the hardest part when you have depth like we do. You hope that guys can separate themselves on their own, because then it's easier to get guys minutes, right? But if a bunch of guys are even, well, now it's a lot tougher, and so you want to make it as competitive as you can.
You talked about wanting Josh to rebound more and things like that. If he's in a lineup with, like a bigger lineup with Pharrell and Dawson, does that can't change his mindset?
No.
I mean, if he's away from the basket.
Yeah, no, he's got to go. Yeah, he's got to go. And because he's really good at it, but we can't lose that edge part to us where we're just a physical team going after the boards, and he's a hum motor guy. I mean, that's what makes him good, is that he can crash and rebound, and we got to get Isaiah doing it. Isaiah's got to go get in there and rebound. I think, again, Cam took a step when Braden was out, but that's a piece that Braden brings. Braden, when he's in the game, he's got to go crash, he's got to go rebound. I think that's going to be a big key to our success starting tomorrow and down the way, is can we maintain the physicality edge? Can we still continue to put pressure on the backboards? Great first shot defense, but then also offensively, can we put pressure on the boards?
What does it mean to have Braden back with the team now?
It's good, again, it's a piece that has been in the system that was playing well, especially defensively. Brings toughness, brings IQ, brings physicality, brings want to, and it's just anytime you can be a whole team, that's normally a good thing. So it adds a good depth piece, adds competitive stuff in practice, which is good. You're when a guy's out, you're one less body down in practice when you're trying to compete and get stuff done. So to be fully loaded, especially this time of year, knock on wood for us is definitely a good thing.
When will you know that he's ready to play again?
I'll probably continue to talk to him. I would assume there's a good chance for Michigan. But some of that just depends, on his progression back. But it was just good to get him back in practice. And I know you guys have all done a good job covering it and covering him. I guess the only thing was just disappointing that some people didn't, and it's disappointing that some people ran with a narrative that's not fair to that kid. And I don't want to get on a big soapbox, but I feel like you gotta stand up for your guys when you need to stand up for your guys, and this is a time when I gotta stand up for my guy, and that kid's done everything right. He was in the facility literally, every day. I saw him every day. So any narrative that's outside of what we all know as public of what he was going through is irresponsible. And from that standpoint, I'm glad he's back, but I just felt bad the timing of it, however that got out by whoever, because it couldn't be farther from the truth. And for a kid that could have left last year and didn't, and has stuck with it, and was a kid that I got when I first got the job, and he was the first kid that committed to me, and that has shown unbelievable loyalty to myself and to the program. For even that to remotely come out is just not fair to him at all. And I know it bothered him, because he cares. And so I just, that's unfair.
How much did it bother you? So it was the story the other day, or the note in the shooter's column, right?
Yeah, I didn't even see it. So I did not see it. And then we literally, this is why it's so ironic. The day we get back on the 26th, we always practice that evening. And so I met with him like I normally do, and he came in, and it was the best I'd seen him in 3 weeks. He was glowing. And that's when he told me, he's like, hey, I'm ready to start progressing to come back. So I was excited. Kid was thrilled. I was excited. So we go to practice, and I come back, and my phone's lit up with messages from different people, and including his circle, and that was frustrated. And I know he was, because on a day where he feels great and he feels good and we feel good as a program, now he's dealing with outside noise that's not true. And it's one thing if it were coming back from a knee injury or an ankle, but when you're coming back and you're progressing from what he was to now have to juggle stuff that's not true and have to answer that. And I know he doesn't want people to question what his motives are, or I know he doesn't want people to question anything about him. And if it's anything outside of what he was dealing with, it's not true, and I know it's easy to float stuff out and people to speculate and to guess, but it just goes back to at some point we got to be true to the person, and that's where it's just from my standpoint, it gets frustrating. And I know that you guys all have a job to do, and I respect it and I get it. But I don't get when it's kind of a little bit reckless, in my opinion. And so, when, it gets to that point with a player on my team, I will always stand up for them.
Anything else for Coach?
I appreciate it.